Minister Borg, colleagues, Elena has just reminded us the origins of this organization, the Helsinki process. It was basically a grand bargain between the then communist bloc, which sought the confirmation of borders in Europe, and the then West, which wanted respect for human rights in the Soviet bloc. Today, Russia respects neither borders nor human rights. There are no free media in Russia, there are no honest elections, and there are more political prisoners there than in the Soviet Union under Leonid Brezhnev at the time of Helsinki. When the Soviet Union collapsed, we encouraged Russia to become a normal democratic nation state. But they failed. It proved too difficult to emerge from their own political culture. Russia's rulers chose the path of aggressive, repressive kleptocracy. My message to the Russian delegation is the following. We are not taken in by your lies. We know what you're doing. You're trying to rebuild the Russian Empire, and we will not let you. We will resist you every inch of the way. You are successful in destroying Ukraine, but you're also destroying the future of your own country. Until you stop this brutal war, you shouldn't be here.
Wow, good job, High Fidelity. Welcome everybody to RadPod and Not So Chill. Brilliant opener, brilliant song. I'm Heidi Kuda here with Jim Stewartson, High Fidelity. High Fidelity gave us that great cover of a Leonard Cohen song because our guest from episode 120, Nancy MacLean, referenced the song. Everybody knows what's going on. Everybody knows about this corruption that is eating the soul of nations. And too few people are doing anything about it. And I am so grateful that you opened with that clip, which basically says we are not taken in by your lies. We just celebrated 3 years of Radicalized Truth Survives. And you know what? We put the Truth Survives in there because we knew truth was becoming an endangered species, and we are trying to fight against that reality and continue living in reality. Hello, gentlemen. Hello, boys. What's going on?
Hey, you know what we're going to have a lot of today? Take a guess. No?
Oh, hi. Thanks for checking in. I'm still a piece of...
Throwback to the early days of RadPod.
Wait. Yeah. First of all, that was great. Concrete.
Just get it from the beginning. Anyway.
yeah, Concrete Blind Man, like that old school, and that it is a brilliant song by Leonard Cohen, and you know, we are in this parallel world, right, where everybody in the real world knows. We can all see it, right?
Yeah.
But there's this parallel world of people living around us, right? That has a completely different set of guideposts about what's real and what isn't. And right now, it is just remarkable that these really very very mid-wit fucking. I was not gonna cuss so much. Put 50 cents in.
We have to work on it. Yeah.
Swear jar. Sorry.
Yeah, stop fucking swearing already. Jesus.
Hey. Go ahead, Jim. Yes, this parallel reality.
We're getting yanked around by oligarchs who are just gaslighting us, lying right to our face.
Yeah.
And the Antichrist, Peter Thiel, that we just had a moment about. And by the way, I'm an atheist.
Yeah.
But if he is the closest literal approximation, if not the actual Antichrist, and I was wrong about the whole religion thing, and there really is all that shit, because he really is as close as you could possibly get. And he went on Piers Morgan to, I don't know what his goal was exactly, but he came across as a just terrifying dumb Nazi that thinks very very highly of himself, but he what the biggest tell, and he's done this before, but this one was really blatant, was comparing the United States to Weimar Germany. Think about that in a way that, and what he said specifically was, America is like Weimar in the 1920s, where the conventional wisdom was failing, so they had to go outside the Overton window.
Unbelievable.
Quote unquote. So Weimar, yes, they had problems. They had inflation. A lot of that was brought on by, Nazi infiltration and sabotage and all that shit. But yeah, they had problems or whatever. But what he's doing is saying, you know what? They kind of deserved it. They needed it, right? They needed some tough love, and it's just terrifying. He's asked and it's the softest interview you can imagine, and he still gets stumped, because, as people may know, Luigi Marinara, who shot the
Actually, hold on a second. Luigi Mangione.
I know.
Okay.
I actually have a clip.
Keep going.
I just corrected it. I was kidding. It was a joke. Yeah, Luigi Massanara, whatever it is, who killed the CEO, was a big fan, apparently, of Peter Thiel and Elon Musk, and was a member of this kind of Silicon Valley weird movement. Great Tribe, POTS. It's got all kinds of weird sort of insidery ways to think about it, but it's basically this anarchist strain of Silicon Valley, which is heavily funded by fascists and Russians. Oddly. Anyway, so Luigi had retweeted Peter, and so Piers Morgan asked Peter about it. And what followed is the do you have this? What?
The ancien.
No, that's not it. What are you doing?
Do you think this shooter is a hero because he did it because he said this healthcare executive was presiding over a healthcare system which kills thousands of Americans by denying them cover? What would you say to them?
It's I don't know what to say. I think I still think you should try to make an argument, and I think this is you should, you know, there may be things wrong with our healthcare system, but you have to make an argument, and you have to try to find a way to convince people and change it by that. And this is, you know, this is not going to work.
Peter,
I don't know.
Yeah.
It's yeah. I mean, there are all sorts of things one could say about it, but I don't think, and I think, you know, I think the motives feel, I don't want to go into all the particulars here, but I don't think I don't think
Wow.
it's very difficult for Peter Thiel for some reason to say murder is wrong.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, like, he is an extremely nervous Nazi. It's very, very interesting, and you know, for good reason. He's nervous for a couple of reasons. First of all, that the movements that, you know, he has funded and bred for years and years, you know, at a minimum indirectly contributed to this guy's ideology. That's, you know, public. And also, you know, he's like, oligarchs, you know, are not necessarily in favor these days, and he's feeling that too. And under no circumstances should, I can say it, murder's fucking wrong.
Yeah.
Breaking the law is wrong.
Right.
Guess what? We're still supposed to have laws,
Right.
you know, that apply to all the people, not just the little people, but all of them. But regardless, this guy is a nervous billionaire because he's right on the cusp of, you know, effectively taking over planet Earth along with his partner Elon Musk, and you know, we're watching the cracks.
Wow. Okay. So I got a couple things I need to say. For those of you who don't know who Peter Thiel is, because he is not, unfortunately, a household name. He is part of the PayPal mafia. As everybody on this show knows, both Thiel and Musk received early funding from our foreign enemies, who are the reason that we are in this predicament we're in right now. He and J.D. Vance, he paid for J.D. Vance to be put into power, essentially buying a Senate seat. And he and J.D. Vance financed a platform called Rumble. Rumble is Russian propaganda all day long. And Rumble, you can find RT on Rumble streaming to millions and millions of people daily. You can also find all the tenant media influencers who we now know were paid by RT employees. And we now know, due to some of the intelligence reports, that RT has direct ties to Russian military intelligence. And as you're going to hear from our guest that we had on, Nancy MacLean, who has been warning us about billionaires taking over our country. And she's been writing about how these billionaires knew, particularly in the Koch cadre, since 1959, that global warming was real, and all the things that we're going to be discussing on this show. But I just want to say, we need protection from people like Peter Thiel. And I think that clip you just highlighted shows specifically how dire it is. Oh my God.
Can I, so one of the things that Nancy focused on a lot was the idea of a constitutional convention, right? which basically is where 34 of the states come together, and maybe under false pretenses, by the way, according to Nancy, where they can just rewrite the fucking rewrite the Constitution in any way that they choose. And yesterday, Elmo, Adam Waffen, Elmo, hat tip to Insider for that, was retweeting ideas for amendments. Like, ooh,
wow.
one of his far right anti woke account, like sock accounts or whatever, you know, tweets out an idea for you know, to change everything about elections or something like that, and he's like, oh, that'd be a good one. And it's just like the richest man in the world who is bullying senators, and I don't know.
I know. I saw that.
Senators on his own
Yeah.
side to accept people like Kash Patel in FBI, bullying them with money, saying, I'm going to primary you with millions and millions of dollars unless you let this psychotic QAnon dude run investigations for the federal government.
Wow. Wow.
So we're, you know, it's scary stuff, you know, especially when that Cash dude is after my ass already.
Yeah. Yeah. Why don't you give Hi-Fi anything that you want to say before we I ask Jim a question?
I think it goes back to a fundamental problem, and a lack of understanding by our Supreme Court, because in Citizens United they ruled that money was speech. Money is not speech. Money is
It's not lack
influence.
of understanding, though. You know.
Yeah, right.
Well,
right,
no, it's not lack
right.
of understanding, but
They know exactly what it is,
their
which is why they're
legal
trying to kill it.
precedent.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Their legal
right.
precedent
Right.
is that money is free speech and you should have unlimited money, right? And we know Senator Whitehouse has gone through the whole, you know, 501c3, 501c4 schemes that they're using to launder money. And it's really pathetic. But yeah, money is not speech. Money is influence and power. And until we recognize that as a country and do something about it, yeah, we're pretty well fucked, because there's people like Elon Musk out there.
Well,
yeah, people are, companies are people, and money is speech, and they'll twist anything around any light pole they can find, right? In order to you know, make a mockery of the English words.
Yes.
Like even the words from 250 years ago, you can understand them fine.
Yeah.
It's not hard.
So let me remind people, in the dissent for Citizens United, which allowed this tsunami of dark money to effectively lead to the end of our democracy as we know it. In the dissent, Justice John Paul Stevens said it's going to be like giving Tokyo Rose the same amount of weight as the Allied commanders. And that's what happened. And no one's done anything about it. And I was going to ask Jim to give us an update on something, but I want to read you something that Carol Cadwallader, a very brave reporter in Great Britain, wrote yesterday. She wrote, with journalists in authoritarian countries, what journalists in authoritarian countries know is that you're never going to be told the truth. The state is going to lie to you, so you will have to find other creative ways to get the facts. And the thing is, I don't know if our billionaire-owned media even cares, but are they planning on how they're going to deal with the fact that they are never going to get the truth? And they have been platforming liars for 8 years now consistently and calling it news. That's not news. That's how you become a fascist authoritarian state, by allowing Tokyo Rose to have the same weight as the Allied commanders.
I mean, more than the Allied commanders at this point, right?
Yeah.
Elon Musk has artificially 207 million followers. just on Twitter, not to mention the ridiculous amount of influence he has through the $1/3 of $1 trillion that he has managed to collect from me and you, right? Speaking of Tokyo Rose, the Voice of America has been an important institution for a long time, and partly invented as a counter to things like Tokyo Rose, right?
Yes.
So that there was always the Voice of America out there that somebody in a you know, terrifying situation could reach out to and hear that there's a fucking democracy somewhere in the
Right.
world. There's
Right.
freedom somewhere out there. Guess who's running the Voice of America now? Kari Lake,
Yeah. My God. Right. Yeah.
who still says that she's the governor and a senator.
Yeah.
She says she's won both of the elections that she lost, like drastically worse than the, you know, she underwhelmed in both cases. And Trump sticking her at the VOA, honestly, is a pretty big slap in the face. Nevertheless, symbolically, think about this. Election denier who has spent the last 5 years just losing her mind, lying her face off all day long,
Yeah.
is going to be the Voice of America. Literally, Tokyo Rose for America. It's horrifying.
It's so desperate. My very first friend in the very real resistance in November of 2016 was from Romania. And he's the one who told me that all of this starts with the silencing of truth. But he, in his youth, his family had a radio, and they used to sneak in like a little private area in their home and listen to Voice of America. And that was the hope that they had in Romania, because they were living under a very brutal regime. And they managed to, as you guys know, it was Marcy Shore's interview with us who wrote The Ukrainian Night and Caviar and Ashes, where she said things can change in an Augenblick. And in Romania, there was a protest going on, a pro-Ceausescu protest, and one guy in the crowd said, "Boo." And that one guy ignited people to overthrow a brutal dictatorship in just a blink of an eye. So we have much, unfortunately, to learn. And we are, unfortunately, living in a Cold War that actually never ended. And it's going to only escalate. But Jim, I want to, there's some good news today, and we have to pay tribute to that. Talk to us about what happened with Rick Wilson and Mike Flynn in Florida, because I think that's a very important thing for our viewers to hear and understand.
Yeah. So the worst trader in American history sued me last year. That didn't shut me up. So Kash Patel, the incoming FBI director, filed suit against me in Nevada as well. That didn't shut me up. So when Rick Wilson had the temerity to retweet me for saying something nice about an appearance on Rachel, Rick got sued. Then I went on a Midas Touch podcast, the Anthony Davis show, which was lovely. And then Mike Flynn sued Midas Touch because they had the temerity to have me on one of their podcasts. Anyway, Midas's was so ridiculous that I guess Flynn just dropped it. But Rick's has been going on this whole time, and he's been fighting it hard. Thank God for Rick, and I've been a big fan of Rick for a long time. Really, some of really important stuff that he's done and educating to people like me about how the other side works.
He's been very courageous as well.
Very, yeah.
How he fights.
He said no fucks at all, which is why it was the guy not to take on here. Anyway, so Rick was like, okay, fuck you, here we go, and took him on, and he got his case thrown out by the judge in Sarasota, and then Flynn appealed it because he's a whiny, crying sissy, and so that got thrown out. Sorry, and that got thrown out, and Flynn has to pay his legal fees. So currently there's a public offer of settlement that Flynn's trying to get me to agree to undisclosed terms. Fuck you. We've sorry, I had to cuss in that particular instance, and
there was no other phrase that was appropriate.
Totally acceptable.
I had to make an exception.
if anybody will explain the backstory on how we're practicing on not swearing.
Anyway, doesn't matter. Anyway, so now Mike Flynn owes Rick Wilson. I can tell you from personal experience, a lot of money, a lot. And so my advice publicly, I've already let him know on the Zitter nightmare, but I'll tell him here too. Your best option, you have two options. Your best option is to drop your case and limit your legal and financial exposure to me, because anyway, the second option you have is to find out. So.
Well, I certainly appreciate your tenacity, and I appreciate the support of the 540 people who have supported Jim in this fight, because we could not do without you. That GoFundMe has been 10 and $5 and $20 and some big donations, but bottom line is that this was lawfare in what was a free country, which allowed people to speak truth to power. And Jim's work is rooted in watching what these guys do and say, and then letting people know what they do and say and what a threat it is to our democracy. And as we can see, we are lurching toward January 20th. And so everything that we've been saying for years and warning about for years, which actually brings me to my next question. I have been doing a lot of thinking. People like Jackie Singh does not get paid to do the type of work she does to expose these foreign actors who've been harming our country, and these domestic traitors who've been harming our country and influencing election outcomes. And we also don't. Literally, we've been doing this as civic duty. But I need to ask you guys, in this dire, grave hour where our country's in so much peril, why did the U.S. government, our enforcement agencies, our defense, our military defense, why did they do nothing when U.S. citizens were under attack every single day, in order to create this unreality that people have been forced to live in? They just allowed it to happen. Hostile foreign nations have had access to the minds of all our citizens in order for this election to turn out the way it did, and the 2016 election, etc. And why was it left up to independent teams of people to try to expose this? Okay, High Fidelity.
You're killing us here.
Answer the question, because this is a serious question. I want to know why.
Hi-Fi is like doing spells, though.
Pick me!
I know the answer to this, and you're not going to like it. Nobody's going to like it, but it's the God's honest truth. The answer is capitalism.
Yeah.
Hold on.
That's not
Don't.
acceptable.
Stop for a second. Stop for a second. I would draw your attention to the case of Charles McGonigal. Why was McGonigal working for Albanian gangsters tied to Russia? For money. Why did Michael Flynn take on? Hold on. Why did Michael Flynn take on the case of Fethullah Gulen?
That's greed. That's different from capitalism.
Okay, mice.
Okay.
Money, ideology, compromise, ego.
Okay, that's the people who are facilitating the attacks on our country. But why, when we have all these intelligence agencies and we have enforcement agencies and other countries, you know, Romania just threw out their election because of the attacks that happened in their country. They just nullified their election. So we can look all around the world and say, even Kenya, back around the time of the 2016 election, Kenya was like, wait, Cambridge Analytica, exploited people's minds.
I'll give you an answer. It's structural corruption. It's if you know, which is a different way of saying the deep state. The government is made up of people, right? The people mostly are just people who want to keep their jobs, right? So part of the function of the government is to hide information from the people, and that is a dangerous game.
Yeah.
And we have been in many ways it's very important, right? You got to have secrets. You got to keep everybody else's secrets secret, right? But
wow, damn it. The whole idea I've been telling you about the Godzilla, you know, the fact that governments control information.
So you know, we have like I keep coming back to this, but Havana syndrome.
Yeah.
The whole planet.
Yeah.
Anyone who has paid any attention to anything absolutely knows that it's the Russian government attacking Americans.
Yeah.
The evidence is very, very plentiful and clear, and
yeah.
60 Minutes at this point. It's not secret.
Right.
And they will not.
Everybody knows.
Everybody knows.
Everybody knows. Everybody
right?
knows. Yeah.
And there's a Sarah Kendzior book. They knew. They did, and they do know. And the calculation that gets done structurally, and I mean it structurally, is that letting this information out is more dangerous than not letting than telling people, right? And unfortunately, when you get people like Biden, when you who surrounded himself with establishment people, it's more about that than it is about people. And I don't mean that even as a pejorative necessarily, but it's just how it has always worked. And unfortunately, we're a victim of that. And then, added to that sort of overall resistance to anything that might damage itself getting out, right, is infiltration.
Yeah.
So you've got these very, very cautious old man weird networks anyway, and then you insert a McGonigal who's getting millions of dollars from oligarchs, literal Russian oligarchs.
Oleg Deripaska.
Oleg effing Deripaska. See what I did there? And who's running counterintelligence for the entire FBI out of the New York office during the 2016 election. And where did all of the corruption start and end? Ending with Comey, but it started all the way down. The New York office hated Hillary Clinton.
Yeah.
And to be fair, the DC office hated Donald Trump.
Yeah.
But the net effect is that they're not focused on us, and that is a problem up and down. And I'll stop. I won't pontificate much longer, but one more thing. That is a problem overall. There is one sort of truthiness about some of the stuff that gets said, which is that there is bureaucracy. There's a lot of bureaucracy, and there's a problem with bureaucracy. The problem is the bureaucracy is not in the areas that they're concerned with. The bureaucracy is in things like the justice system, where you can't get anybody arrested for treasoning in public, for getting caught taking Russian laundered money. Speaking of the tenant guys, Benny Johnson out here all day long, just lying his stupid Russian face off. With $100,000 per video, and the FBI picks him up and indicts 2 Russians in Russia. What the That's not going to do anything. It doesn't help anybody. But that's an example, right? It's called that's called a limited hangout.
Exactly.
We have learned this phrase, but in case people missed it, it's important.
Yeah.
It's the idea that, they're getting real hot about this Russia thing, right? So we better put a little tidbit out there for them to squirrel around and make it seem like we're actually paying attention to this, but not actually do a damn thing about it. Instead, we're going to let Julian Assange on the street, right?
Right.
We're going to do all this ridiculous, complicit stuff and hope it gets better. And it never does.
No, it doesn't.
And so I don't mean to sound like a nihilist or whatever, but if it seems like maybe this is an opportunity for some of that absolute garbage, some of the just stuff that's been left over, to get cleaned out, because right now we've allowed it to get very, very corrupt. The Supreme Court is done.
Yeah.
It is going to take an Abraham Lincoln-like move by somebody to fix it.
Yeah.
Period.
Right.
Period. They broke it. They lopped it off and turned it into the hand of the king. That is done. There is no way for us to fix that without some serious changes. So, for what it's worth, we're going through some things.
Yes, we are. And some of my journalist friends in Washington, D.C., who've been trying very, very hard to prevent the worst from happening. Tom Carter comes to mind, who spent 14 years trying to get the New York Times and other high-profile outlets to report on the danger of Leonard Leo, and was not able to. And he's just like, hey, they wanted fascism, have at it. You got it now. And I want to bring this up. In Carol's recent post that I mentioned to you guys, because she started her Broligarch Substack, she said, despite all the reasons not to, journalists may be some of the last believers in the rules-based order. We live by facts. We die by facts. We believe facts matter. And the thing is, as Maria Ressa said, the incredible journalist from the Philippines, first they came for the journalists. We don't know what happened after that. We don't know what happened next. And it's like, that's how serious this is. So listen, okay, we are going to now, unless High Fidelity. Oh no, actually there is one other question I have for you guys before we watch Nancy MacLean's clips. The gaslighting between Ray and Garland. Jim, high five, both of you.
I would like to go on this one, please, because if I were Joe fucking Biden, here's what I'd do. I would say, okay, you know what, Ray, you're retiring. That's great. You retire right fucking now. I'm going to appoint a badass to do your job for you and take care of the people who funded, planned, and executed January 6th at an administrative level. And then I'm going to put someone in charge of the DOJ. So, Garland, you need to resign as well.
But it's opium. It's opium.
I know it is opium. But
I know,
if I were Joe Biden, that's what I'd do.
Thank you. Okay, thank you for that. Yeah, it'd be nice to see some prosecutions for treason.
I mean, Merrick Garland. I saw him thanking Chris Wray for his service or whatever, and all I could think was that Merrick Garland is sitting there thinking, "Man, I'm glad this guy took some of the heat off me." You know, while we basically covered up the worst political crime in American history, right? What functionally, what happened? We had January 6th, and it's personal to me because I wasn't physically there, but I was on it, and I was warning, and I had step-by-step instructions for the FBI on how to stop it. Here you go. Here's what they're doing and the places they're, all of it. And what happened was absolutely nothing except for a bunch of MAGAs blaming the FBI for it, right? And Antifa. And then absolutely nothing happens except for they go after the foot soldiers for a year and a half. And then, there's a committee. Okay, great. Nothing is happening in the DOJ, right? The entire thing gets pushed off, and then we find out that Chris Wray had been slow rolling and convincing Garland not to prosecute. Imagine what is up with that? Why would an FBI director tell the Attorney General not to prosecute something? And why would the Attorney General listen? And why would the President of the United States put up with any of it? It is, you know, it's the deep state. It's the old crusty establishment norms based neoliberal bullshit that has put us in this quagmire. And you know, for me, I am not a an anarchist or a third party guy or any of this. You know, I'm not trying to cause a revolution, but I am saying that we need to create political power outside of the establishment parties because these guys are not doing their job.
They have failed us.
I want to land here. The Democrats, their job has been to clean up the Republican mess and then allow the Republicans to cheat. It is battered spouse syndrome. It is Stockholm syndrome, and I am absolutely tired of it. You know, we've got Craig Unger telling us about a 44-year-old theft of an election.
Yeah.
Like, why does it take this brave, determined man to figure this out 44 years after the fact? Because of the same bullshit that has left all of these criminals out to do what they did and, you know, influence another election and all the rest of it.
And
so
because
what I'm saying is, at some point, okay, let's make some changes, and it's just going to be about, well, how hard is it going to be?
It's going to be so hard. It is so hard to get a democracy back once a country goes authoritarian, and we had our shot. And when you brought up Craig Unger, that's an example of journalists maybe the last believers in the rules-based order. Yeah, it's worth reminding our viewers that Chris Wray worked for a law firm that represented Russian oil interests. So You know, we never have to look far for things when we're scratching our heads going, why are they doing this? Why are they doing this? And, you know, previous heads of the FBI, previous heads of the CIA went to work for Russian oligarchs. And it's like, you know, greed, power, whatever it is, we lost our way. And now we're really, really going to lose our way. And thankfully, people like Nancy MacLean, who wrote the book Democracy in Chains, she also wrote a very important book about the KKK, Behind the Mask of Chivalry. And one of the most important lessons from that book that she wanted our viewers to know is that they mask their movements in all kinds of things, right? But what they really are is corrupt. And when people figure that out, when they finally figure it out, then they are like, okay, then they lose numbers. And that's what happened when it was, she wrote about the second coming of the KKK. So MAGA, if you're listening, I look forward to you guys realizing you've been taken, you've been had. And when you do, we're going to need you to join us in solidarity to try to get our country back. And as Jim was just saying, make it better than it was and protect us from the type of corruption that has captured it. So high fidelity, let's see the first clip, number 6.
It feels like billionaires are trying to murder the future so they can get another dollar.
Yeah.
Wow.
What are your thoughts on that?
Wow.
Yeah, that was a pithy version of one of the most important questions we face.
That's his area of expertise.
Yeah, I can tell you by way of preface to my answer that I am a board member of an organization called the Excessive Wealth Disorder Institute. So I could not agree more. You know,
Can I get a membership card? Can I get a membership card?
But this is another place, right, where we have to start changing the language we use, because you're exactly right. It is a disorder. These people are sick. I mean, literally, can you imagine, like, here you are, you know, I know Charles Koch the best, but you have over $50 billion, right? Over 50, like you can't even, who could spend that? You can't even do anything. But at this point, you have to assume that their brain circuits, right, are so distorted from the years of the adrenaline rushes of getting to that amount of wealth, like Elon Musk, you know, or these other people. And they're getting more and more crazy because they just want to keep going back and sucking more wealth out. And for me, as a US historian, the best analogy that I can think of is the enslavers, right? Who brought on the Civil War, going back to your point, Heidi, about treason and traitors. You know, the militant enslavers of the South, you know, excited by people like John C. Calhoun. John C. Calhoun, who said on the Senate floor that slavery is a positive good as an answer to abolitionist organizing and agitation. John C. Calhoun envisioned this whole system, this kind of anti-democratic system that was later picked up by James Buchanan, that I wrote about, and Charles Koch. But so they understood that the biggest plantation owners, the people who made the most money from trading in men, women, and children, you know, who were in bondage, that they treated as property, they understood that in a republic, in a place where there was popular, you know, we the people were supposed to be in control, that system could not last, right? That democracy was going to come after that system, which it began to do. And so that is why they seceded from the Union, to be able to continue their highly profitable and absolutely disgusting enterprise, right? They're morally reprobate, you know, I mean, like there's so many words you could use for what they were doing, which we could also repurpose for fossil fuels, right?
Yes.
That same drive that you're talking about, where the most crazy luxury is never enough, right? You know, if you own 400 people, you want to own 600, you know, if you have, you know what I mean? I mean, I am ranting now, but your point is really important, in that we have to start recognizing there's something wrong with these people, right? Like, they are not figures to be emulated. They are figures to be controlled for the survival and the well-being of the rest of us. I also like the phrase that, and I can't remember who I got it from, but our capitalist overlords. I think
Yeah.
that's a good one, you know. But these people are riding us, right? They've got the saddle on, they've got now the spurs and the reins. And the question is, are we going to overthrow them, or are we going to let them ride us into?
Woo! She just nails it, doesn't she?
She's just fire. The book is Democracy Reigns. Her other book, 30th anniversary edition, is Behind the Mask of Chivalry. So her both.
Can I say something about what she said?
Yes.
She was talking about Calhoun and slavery, and how, you know, it was a calculation, right? It was a greed calculation, and they did not have, they were sociopaths and did not have the moral sort of capability to understand that that's just wrong. And what's important to understand about our current capitalist overlords is that they're pro-slavery, literally pro-slavery. Peter Thiel, Elon Musk, David Sachs, who, by the way, if you haven't heard, is going to be the newly created crypto and AI czar in the White House. We're going to have this apartheid oligarch white supremacist sitting in Trump's ear telling him to do the strategic Bitcoin reserve. It's important, and you'll get rich. You'll get filthy rich. And we'll basically be twisting this old demented weirdo's arm to do all of the PayPal mafia's bidding. So, you know, I think it's important for us to understand where, you know, where this comes from. Go ahead, high five before you break your finger.
I got a thing because I need to give a shout out to somebody. Hold on. I need to give a shout out to the San Francisco Standard here, because this is an article, and this is good because this helps people, because it references something in our back catalog, and that was our episode about the Tescrial threat. Turns out, you know, Luigi Mangione is into some effective altruism and some shit like that. And where does all that stuff come from? Silicon Valley. And who's running Silicon Valley? Peter Thiel and all his boys, and a bunch of Russian money and Saudi money.
That was a perfect opportunity for the button. Why didn't you?
Oh, hi. Thanks for checking in. I'm still a piece of.
No.
What?
No.
Why?
He blew it.
I had to do it because anyway.
So no, that is all incredibly important stuff. And yeah, thank you for running that entire clip of Nancy. I just want to bring something up, because I want to make sure I say this before the show ends. I read every word Jason Stanley writes, and he was talking about this sort of abusive language where words that we know to be fascism are then used by the fascists to call us fascists. Words that we know what the definition of treason is. The far right will say that we are committing treason. I understand what communism is. They will call us communists. It's a part of how you condition people to be so confused about things that they give up. But I just want to bring up all I've been doing, not all I've been doing, but a lot of what I've been doing. I've got all these books. I'm reading 4 books always at once, 6 books at once, The Grave Diggers, Blood and Banquets, all these books from what was happening in Weimar Germany in the 30s and 40s. And Peter Thiel calling us like Weimar, as Jim said, he meant it in the upside down. He reversed it. But yes, America is like Weimar in that a failing mob, a failing, corrupt, disgusting, racist mob, which was on its way out, by the way, gets put into power by business elite and greed and revenge, and the worst things happened. So yes, in that sense, we are like Weimar. We still have a few weeks. to do something about what's coming. I don't see any heroes on the horizon who are going to lead us out of this. You know, I think what Jim was saying earlier is there's going to be a lot of pain, but it's like, I'm so tired of these guys misusing words and terms and abusing history. They are the grave diggers. The people like Teal and Elon Musk are the fucking grave diggers of democracy. So I wasn't going to swear, damn it. God. All right. Yeah. So
You know what we should do? We should go to another clip of Nancy.
That I find to be the most important finding of my work in Democracy in Chains, which is that the architects of this strategy knew, not from the abstract, but from repeated historical experience, that their program was terribly unpopular, that no one, certainly not a majority of people, would ever want to live in the kind of world that people like Charles Koch wanted to bring into being. And if people knew what was coming, they would mobilize and they would stop it. And so I still believe that that informed, organized majority is what we need to overthrow the people who are riding us. And yes, Donald Trump did win one of the narrowest victories in modern American, political history, to get into the White House, partly because of what we've talked about of the problems of the Democratic Party and the ways that it didn't address the issues that so many people were feeling. But, and yes, they have both chambers of Congress. But as we also talked about, so much of that was based on disinformation, right? On radically lying to people and telling them things that weren't true and promising things that they won't deliver, including protecting Social Security and Medicare and more. And so I think it is going to be crucial for folks like us and all the kind of people who listen to your podcasts and who have been involved in mobilizing to defend democracy in recent years. It's going to be really important for folks to be ready to answer that, right? To help explain to people what happened, to help explain to those MAGA voters, to provide them an off-ramp to say, no, especially the swing ones who came over at the end, you didn't ask for this, right?
yes.
And to make sure that those people can become part of the big coalitions we will need to push back on all of this, to get the chance again to do the democracy reform that we need, to do all of the things that vast majorities of the people want, and to protect our planet from these monsters, right? These essentially murderous monsters. Let's just be honest about who these fossil fuel liars are, like Charles Koch, like the folks at Exxon and elsewhere, who funded disinformation while profiting from this deadly
industry. I'm sorry, we have a petroleum addiction. We have got to get over it somehow, some way.
I mean, we will get over all of these problems, unfortunately, the hard way, because
they're coming.
The die has been cast here, and what we need to do is be realistic about what's coming, and start to think about how to organize and force multiply our power, because we're not doing it. And I think what Nancy is saying about thinking about ways to come up with a movement that brings people back together without giving up any of our principles is really important. And the one basic thing is this, that is my belief that will ultimately break through. Rich guys are stealing from you. That's it. Rich guys are stealing from you. They hoaxed you. You got scammed by a bunch of rich guys. Here's how it happened. If you can open up I don't care what he believes. A good old boy, you know, and forgive me for the stereotype, you know, sitting behind his truck, like loves him to Trump, and realizes, holy shit.
Yeah.
You let these billionaires in here come and take my 401k,
Yeah.
you know, like the thing that he's been working on his whole life, right? That like their whole idea right now, and if all we have to do is, if there was a way to magically get just all MAGA to understand one thing, they plan to destroy the dollar, which will destroy the stock market, which will destroy any savings or anything you have. You will be completely at the mercy of these guys as to what you get and what you don't, because it's going to be this weird digital thing, right? Like that's the thing that like all these guys have been warning about. Oh, this crazy digital currency that the Chinese and the Americans are conspiring. No, that's projection, like it always is. The crazy digital currency is Bitcoin. This $100,000 for a very special number. For $100,000, you get a very special number that only you can have. Unless it's cut up into a zillion little pieces and it's got all over the universe, and if they turn the power off or something, poof, there goes your money. It's a scam. It's a hoax. And if we can lock arms with people we might not agree with on anything, right? But lock arms with them and say, to hell with you. We refuse to be your slaves.
Yeah.
We refuse to go back to feudalism.
Feudalism, exactly.
We're not interested in your monarchy or your theocracy or any of that weird shit, because we got rid of that 248 years ago.
Preach, brother.
So anyway.
Yeah. Thank you for that. I got a couple things I want to say before we see Nancy's last clip. One is that on the rich guys are stealing from you tip, billionaires, not just Elon Musk. I documented the collaborators in one of my hot type columns. Dozens of billionaires, just like in Germany when the business elite put Hitler into power, the billionaire elite put Trump into power. And among those billionaires were people who made money by buying your home that you lost in the mortgage meltdown, when everybody was scammed out of their freaking homes and everybody was dirty. So some of those people made money buying your home that you no longer own. So I'm trying not to swear, but you know what? That's some kind of evil. And the other thing that I realized many years ago, talking about how the rich profits off the poor, you're overdrawn because you're paycheck to paycheck. They're charging you $30. You're poor, right? You're poor, you're broke, and you got to pay an extra $30. That's how all of this works. These billionaires, we need to be protected from. So if something else, yes, Jim.
I just wanted to say, you know who got real rich in the mortgage meltdown? Robert Mercer.
Yeah.
Robert Mercer got filthy rich because he figured out what was going to happen in the market, and then made $1 zillion in hedge fund money and all of that stuff. And if you're not aware, Robert Mercer has funded half the bad shit that has ever existed on planet Earth. I mean,
oh, hi, thanks for checking in. I'm still a piece of
10 out of 10. 10 out of 10.
Absolutely. Funded Peter Thiel, funded Steve Bannon, funded Breitbart,
Cambridge
Analytica, funded Parler, and most recently, Tucker fucking Carlson. To go to Moscow multiple times and meet with all the people, Dugin
and profited off of prison privatization. I don't know how to say the word, but you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Can we just point out one more thing about Mr. Mercer and his daughter? They were the money behind Parler, and Parler was a honeypot to draw conservatives in and radicalize them for the January 6th attack.
I'm so glad that that Elon Musk is being investigated for using Twitter as a campaign contribution with Saudi and Russian money. So great. No one's investigating it. I'm just, I'm just like saying, like, why are we not doing anything? Why are we not doing anything about it?
Don't do that. Well, that was like the Martian attack, and everyone's like, what?
I was just
although I do have to say, right before coming on air, I happened to see a tweet from Elmo, who is super mad at the Security and Exchange Commissioner for sending him a letter saying, you must comply or we're going to charge you with lots of things.
Ooh.
So we'll see. It was
move
a letter from,
fast. Move fast.
Yeah, I'm like,
we don't have much time yet.
He's like, you got 40 days, bro. Hurry up.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
How long does it take to denaturalize somebody? Guess what? The president can do it anyway, but he's also a king. So he could literally just go, you know what?
Come on, man.
Look at that Nazi coming in here, and I'm going to take all the crap and put it into the treasury, and I'm going to kick his ass back out to whoever will have him. I know South Africa doesn't want him, neither does Canada. Nobody wants him, but New
Zealand doesn't want him. So it is important. One thing we forgot to say about Peter Thiel is that he also is the person who took down the media company Gawker by funding a lawsuit for Hulk Hogan. And so but we've been on he's probably going to be head of the, security. I'll probably put, anyway. Okay. So let's see Nancy's last clip because this is our show. Thanks for staying with us, you guys. Thank you for supporting RadPod through all of these crazy years, man.
Let's go.
What eventually took down the KKK was what will take down, what did you call them before? The organized crime syndicate about to take over our country?
Organized crime ring. I got that from Jim. We share each other's words all the time in our work.
Okay, so the KKK was America's first Christian nationalist mass movement, right? Also white supremacist, also anti-Semitic, also anti-Catholic, but it was absolutely, it sold itself as white Christian nationalist, as it was going to bring purity, protect children, do all these things. And of course, it was anything but, right? That was like the kind of the gateway drug to get you to the awfulness. But what ended up taking it down most immediately was the corruption of its top leaders, right? That they were an organized crime ring. They were liars. They were hypocrites. Their conduct was outrageous. And when it became exposed, they lost members, right? So I think that is one lesson, to go back and look at that movement and see how it collapsed of its own contradictions, and a lot of determined organizing from the people it had targeted, or from other people who were good people and stood in solidarity with the targets. But that collapsing of its own contradictions, overstepping, corruption, etc., was crucial. So I think that's a good takeaway to realize we're going to have some wind in our sails.
My heart.
I know a lot of people that are never ever going to submit to this. So they start locking people up. They start, really, pulling some of this, and, find out, I guess, but there are a lot of people who are not interested in their games. So, we'll see how it goes.
Not interested in Putin's kleptocracy. That's what we're not interested in.
And if they chase me out of the country and I gotta sabotage shit from Reykjavik or whatever, I don't know.
Hey, I just need to mention something because I like talking about this. This right here, this is the phone number for the Department of Justice. Right there, right above my head. 202-353. Main switchboard right there. Give them a call
What do you want
and
them
tell
to
them
do?
exactly what you think about them. Be polite. Don't swear. We're not swearing anymore, apparently. I've been told. Anyway,
Well, can I
call the
say?
Department of Justice and ask them why they're not doing their job and protecting us from billionaires conspiring with foreign powers, man.
Thank
I
you.
mean, last thing for me is Chris Wray, the most cowardly, pathetic, deep state garbage bag, and like for him to quit voluntarily right before Trump comes into office so that Trump can put Kash Patel in as acting FBI director while he, tries to get actually installed, is just the most catastrophically cowardly thing that I can imagine, and catastrophically cowardly of the president to just allow the rules to be completely different for everyone else. I just find it reprehensible, and I don't understand how people like that can consider themselves patriots.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Hi-Fi. That was one hell of a show, hell of an hour. Nancy's line, the gateway drug to get you to all the awfulness. They've used a lot of gateway drugs to get you to the awfulness. Let's get back to reality and let's get some protection against these billionaires who are trying to kill us, as Hi-Fi said, ignoring climate science, taking your money, getting rich off you. What was the great line that you had, Jim? I want people to make rich guys are stealing from you. So that's our show. That's our show. Thanks, guys.
Hey, just final thing going out.
Deep thoughts with High Fidelity. Coming up.
Well, it is the season now. We are into the Christmas season, and happy Kwanzaa, Ramadan, Hanukkah, whatever you got going on.
All the things.
All the things. Enjoy yourselves, people. I thought we'd go out with a little billionaire carol.